Have you ever really stopped to think about what's going on inside your glass of wine? I mean, really think about it? Because beyond the grape, beyond the alcohol, there is an entire unseen world at play. So let's dive into this hidden ecosystem. You know, a truly great wine isn't just made in a factory. It's born out of this incredible biological saga. It all starts as simple grape juice, sure, but it transforms into this complex, living world, a microscopic battlefield, really, for countless microorganisms. Because that is literally what happens. It's a full-on drama, with heroes, villains, and even a few sneaky double agents, all fighting for control. And guess what? The winner of this invisible war determines every single thing you taste and smell in that final glass. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it all starts on a stage that you've definitely seen but probably never really noticed: the grape's own skin. You know that kind of waxy, dusty-looking film on a fresh grape? That's called the bloom, and it's not just some protective coating. It is a bustling metropolis of microbes. We're talking yeasts, bacteria, molds. They're all just hanging out, waiting for the grape to be crushed so they can get to work. This is basically where all our main characters gather. All right, every good story needs a hero, right? In the world of winemaking, our primary heroes are the yeasts. These are the tiny little powerhouses that do the magic trick of turning sugar into alcohol. But here's the thing, not all yeasts are created equal. When fermentation first kicks off, it's these guys who jump into action. Think of them as the first responders on the scene. They're all over the grape skin, they get the party started, but they're not very strong. They have pretty low fermentative power, and they just can't handle high levels of alcohol. So they get things going, but they definitely can't finish the job. Okay, now what's so cool here is how you can actually see this microbial takeover happening. What you're looking at is basically the percentage of different yeast species over time. At the very beginning, all the way on the left, you see that whole rainbow of colors. That's our first responders, all mixed together and getting to work. And then the champion emerges. As you can see moving across that chart, one yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, just starts to dominate. It's way more powerful, it's more alcohol tolerant, and it systematically outcompetes everybody else to become the undisputed hero of fermentation. And this breaks it down perfectly. It's like a three-act play. First, you have the latency phase, where our first responders are doing their thing. Then, the plateau phase. This is where our hero, Saccharomyces, really hits its stride in what winemakers call the tumultuous phase, just cranking out most of the alcohol. And finally, the death phase, where it consumes every last bit of sugar, finishes its mission, and then settles down. But you know how it goes. Where there are heroes, there are often villains. And in the world of wine, there is one notorious saboteur that winemakers absolutely dread: a yeast known as Brettanomyces. And this is basically the villain's rap sheet. This one yeast, often just called Brett, is responsible for a whole list of nasty compounds that can completely ruin a wine. And it doesn't just create one bad flavor. It's got an entire chemical arsenal at its disposal. Let's start with its signature move, 4-ethylphenol. If you've ever heard someone describe a wine as smelling like a barnyard or a horse stable or maybe old leather, and believe me, not in a good way, this is the guy responsible. It is a dead giveaway that Brett has been at work. Next up on its list of crimes, acetic acid. Now, in tiny amounts, it's just vinegar. But Brett can produce so much of it that the wine becomes unpleasantly sharp. And worse, this can combine with the ethanol to create ethyl acetate, which gives you that unmistakable, horrible smell of glue or nail polish remover. And to complete this trifecta of awfulness, you get compounds like isovaleric acid. This is part of a whole group of fatty acids that, when they come together, create an aroma that's really just best described as rancid. So yeah, this villain attacks on multiple fronts to degrade the wine. So where is this bad guy hiding out? Well, here's the twist. Not in the vineyard. Brettanomyces is a creature of the winery itself. It lurks on contaminated equipment, sure, but its absolute favorite hideout is deep inside the pores of wooden barrels. It can just survive there for years, feeding on a special kind of sugar called cellobiose that's created when the barrel wood gets toasted. Now, things get a little more complicated because not every microbe is a clear-cut hero or villain. Some are more like the double agents of our story. I'm talking about lactic acid bacteria. On one hand,
These bacteria can be absolutely fantastic. They're responsible for something called malolactic fermentation, which can soften up a wine's harsh acidity, add all these amazing layers of complexity, and create a rich, creamy, buttery texture. But if they get out of control, they can be a total disaster, producing off flavors like rancid butter, intense bitterness, and those vinegary notes we want to avoid.
So what's the deciding factor? What makes them a friend or a foe? Well, it all comes down to control. Their behavior is completely dictated by the environment. How much sugar is left, the wine's pH, the temperature. The winemaker has to create the perfect conditions to keep them playing for the good guys. And that brings us, of course, to the director of this entire microbial show, the winemaker. Their job isn't just to make wine, it's to be a master microbiologist, carefully guiding this invisible battle to a delicious conclusion. And this is basically their control panel. First off, impeccable hygiene. That's non-negotiable for keeping villains like Brettanomyces out of the picture. Second, temperature control. Keeping cellars cool, right around 13 degrees Celsius, really slows down the bad guys. Third, the strategic use of sulfur dioxide, or SO2, which acts like a selective bouncer, keeping unwanted microbes out. And finally, managing the pH, because a more acidic environment helps the heroes and stops the villains. So what this all really boils down to is that a truly great bottle of wine is never, ever an accident. It's always the result of a winemaker who understands this invisible world and skillfully manages every single tiny variable to make sure the heroes win. And hey, don't just take my word for it. As the source material puts it, when this whole process is managed well, you don't just end up with wine. You get a wine that's enriched with aromas, loaded with complexity, and full of character. You get a real expression of the grape and the place it came from. So the next time you pour a glass of wine, just take a second. You're not just holding fermented grape juice. You are holding the final outcome of a microscopic war, a story of heroes, villains, and double agents, all masterfully directed to create that beautiful product in your glass. Makes you think, right?